Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today is a very special episode. We're announcing our newest author in our Mission Matters Business Leaders series. His name is Kevin Scudder, and he's the owner at Seattle Collaborative Law Center. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
All right, Kevin, I'm excited to get into some of the content along the lines of what you'll present in this next book. And just for everybody watching, just so you know, we'll be bringing Kevin on for another interview where I'll do a deep dive into his writing. We'll tease it a little bit because we still want to bring Kevin back on. And we also want you to pick up a copy of that book. But we'll start this episode, Kevin, the way that we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Kevin, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Kevin, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters for me is changing the way law is practiced in the Pacific Northwest. As we were discussing in the green room before this meeting, I'm from the Midwest. My dad was an attorney, and taught me a lot. I ended up in Seattle in 1984, practiced law a certain way for over 20 years, which was a litigation model. And then I came across collaborative practice. And, that really was an epiphany for me. And that's really what my book is based on. The concept of let it begin with me, because if I can't rely on external things to keep me going. It's the inner work that I think is really important, was important for me, but also important for our readers.
So I want to stick in these early years a little bit longer here. So when you were making that shift to the concept of collaboration or also collaborative law center, tell us a little bit more about that. What does that look like? Because I don't want to assume that people understand what that looks like in terms of different ways of practicing law.
Sure. So, when I was growing up in Omaha, my dad was the legal aid attorney for Omaha, Nebraska. And he and my mom raised 6 kids, never making more than 40 grand a year.
Wow.
And, tried to make as much available to us as possible. Also growing up in Omaha, I grew up long hair, liberal, and Jewish, which is an interesting combination. And so I did my 18 years in Omaha. After that, I ended up in Massachusetts, and I was studying comparative religious studies as a result of being called a dirty Jew when I was 18 years of age. And I was like, I didn't get it, about how people can use an other to work their way through life. So I ended up in Seattle in 1984. To be honest, Adam, I tried not to be a lawyer. I tried as hard as I could because I did not want to follow in my father's footsteps. I tried late night cooking. I tried Army Navy surplus retail. And then I said, okay, it's time, at 26 years of age, time to get, down to it. Went to law school and I came out and I litigated family law matters for over 20 years. It got to this point of holy smokes, I'm really pretty unhappy doing this work. And this work, every morning I would put on my armor and pick up my sword and shield and go into the Coliseum. And I would have to call people bad parents or attorneys, unethical attorney. And then in 2008 was the time of my epiphany. And I came to my first collaborative introductory training. And I had this visceral sense of coming home to the work that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And it was that concept of let it begin with me. And so I had a vision of a collaborative law center. And the collaborative approach is where litigation is a win-lose situation. And the fact is, our court systems here in the state of Washington, and I believe in other places, are set up that there really isn't justice. That parties who are looking for a resolution don't go to court to get it, basically. And so I had to retrain myself, and I had to fill up my toolbox with these collaborative concepts of, the attorneys stepping aside, let the clients make their own decisions. They're competent. If you get them good information, okay, you give them an opportunity of creating a legacy. They create a financial legacy. They create a legacy for their children, for their grandchildren, for their friends. And so in 2010, 2 years after I took my introductory training, I laid down my sword and shield, and I've done no contested hearings since 2010. And all of my work is based on collaborative work and mediation and helping folk out of court create their resolutions.
If I can keep you in that moment in time of that epiphany, a little longer, because I feel like many times people have epiphanies or they want to make these transitions or shifts and they don't necessarily follow through always. Like, how were
Ooh.
you able to stick with it really? Because I mean, you were trained in the other thing for so long. Like, how were you able to make that? Because that's like a real shift.
Yeah, and this actually goes to my writing, which we'll talk about later. Yeah, I think it's the three C's that I talk about. It's the curiosity,
Mhm.
it's creating the competence, and then having the courage, Adam, to
Mhm.
say, you know what, this business model is not sustainable.
Mhm.
It's not going to get me to where I go, and having the courage to shift in
Mhm.
midstream. It's like building a community. We talk about the collaborative community, the two C's there, but diving off the board into the pool.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
and
is,
it's
isn't it?
fun.
It
It
has to
is.
be. It has to be, because that was not a light decision. I'm guessing that people around you, whether it was family, whether it was peers, whether it was, they must have been like, Kevin, are you okay? Like, because your peer group, like, it's a big shift.
It is, and it's interesting how much fear there was in
Oh,
those
ton of
in those
fear.
around me, Adam. I
Yeah.
mean, family members, kids of, brothers, sisters. I've got 5 brothers,
Yeah.
sisters, my dad, my mom,
And
you
it
know,
doesn't mean that people weren't supportive. It's just like they're genuine, like, Kevin, are you okay? Like, what do you mean you're not going to be in court? You're not going to be doing this, especially, 20 years of doing things a certain way. When you shift, it's like, what's going on, right?
it is interesting because they're saying, Kevin, you're good at that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you're making a good living doing that. Why aren't you sticking with that? And
Mhm.
it's that belief that you can be bigger and better and more filling
Yeah.
in this line of work. So really, it was, and it's the internal energy. Adam,
Yeah.
it's really the mission matters things. Is that
Mhm.
mission was so strong and continues to be so strong in me that people are drawn to me, clients are drawn to me
Mhm.
as a result of my belief in this mission.
Mm.
And I think you'll find that with a lot of your other authors, is
Yeah.
that when, I talk about a practice signature. My practice signature is working from my core values, knowing what my personal attributes are,
Mhm.
and being authentic,
Mm.
okay? Because I carry those things with me every day in this work, and this work allows me to do that, whereas the litigation work of 20 years didn't
Mhm.
allow me to be my authentic self. I had to put on a mask and pretend to be someone else. So
Yeah.
now I get to be myself, and I get to live my values, and
Mhm.
it's been fascinating watching it all come together because, like I said, in 2008, I had this vision of a collaborative law center. And
Mhm.
it took me until 2018 to open up the doors of the Seattle Collaborative Law Center. And now here I am, and here we are. And I now have 2 associate attorneys. I have 3 legal assistants, and the phone just keeps ringing because
Ah,
we offer something people want.
it's a great story. Not to like minimalize it by any means, but like, how do you go from idea to like execution on this? Because you mentioned obviously some years past, but it's not easy just because you want to make that decision to make it happen right after that. And the reason I asked, by the way, is because a lot of entrepreneurs watching this, right? A lot of other individuals,
Right.
whether they're professions that have to do with law, financial advisors, or, that tech startup, like lots of different variations there. But how do you get to that point of execution?
That's another great question. Is number one thing is you know what you know, and you also don't know what you don't know.
I wish I had it.
Right?
It
So
sounds obvious, but does anybody like really think about what Kevin just said? It's like you got me sweating over here. Go ahead.
But right, exactly. So, but this is where the courage comes in of
Mhm.
saying, I know people in my community who mentored me in my collaborative work, made me a
Mm.
better collaborative professional.
Yeah.
I knew the guy who had purchased the Seattle Collaborative Law Center URL and the name. Then I'm fine on the business side of things. I'm fine with the execution of the work product.
Mhm.
But Adam, the social media, the financing, all those things is just really just having the courage to pick up the phone and saying, hey, what don't I know that I need to know as I
Yeah.
open up the doors of this business and make it the gem that I want it to be? I continue to learn, and continue to bring on social media, reaching out, writing my own book. Thank you for the opportunity, by the way, to put my thoughts in writing. You guys made it very easy for me to do so.
Yeah, no, our pleasure. Like, honestly, what you're doing, it's really innovative. And the way I see it is that you're an advocate of really making win-win solutions at the end of the day. And especially in this particular space that you're working in, the idea of coming through mediation and collaboration to come to, great ends. I mean, it's a great story, and it's one that we can all, sometimes the, law profession doesn't always get the best rap, we'll say, right?
Yeah.
It can be done a different way, is the way that I'm not saying that everything that's being done now is like inherently bad. I'm not like saying that, but the point is that in every industry, whether it's something with a legacy such as law, or, like I said earlier, the next tech startup or whatever else, like there's always rooms to innovate. And it might sound kind of counterintuitive because collaboration's such an old idea, but I feel like the way that you're doing it and the way that you're kind of implementing in your practice and even making that the core of the practice, that is innovative.
Thank you. And, I want to, the perception of lawyers in our community, in our society, is really interesting because I used to golf before I started working so much and then had a knee replacement. But, I would always pick up with people and I would say, hey, I'm a lawyer. And they would tell me a lawyer joke, which started with, what do you call 1,000 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean? A good start, and it was like, ouch. It's there's value here. The legal community provides value.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the things that I did was I sent out emails to 600 past clients. And I was overwhelmed by the response. And these were collaborative clients and mediation clients. And people sent me pictures of their new partners. People sent me pictures of their new family, their new kids. And they just said, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. And that's the feedback that keeps me going, of saying, you know what? That's the validation, verification that when I had that epiphany in 2008 and laid down that sword and shield in 2010, I was on the right path. That hasn't changed. It's only become stronger feeling.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because if you leave somebody, regardless of the business, if you leave them with a a fair outcome and they have a great interaction, you'd expect maybe repeat clients, referrals, all the other things. I'm curious, how do you mentioned you have multiple associates and that you're growing. Like, how do you take kind of what's in your heart and your mission, and how do you kind of weave that into the DNA of the firm? Like, how's that journey been for you?
That's been educational on my part.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do this stuff. I'm good at this stuff. How do we
weird, isn't
others?
it? Like for me, it's the same thing. Like I didn't come intuitively. It wasn't like I was a financial advisor before Mission Matters, right? So I'm like, I didn't think about like vision or how to get that into the DNA of an organization, things like that. It's a trip, right?
It is. And then that question of, how do I teach others to do this work and have the passion? And, so I'm finding new tools, and technology is great because you can, tape record faux client consultations and then debrief those and go over those. Conversations, checking in with employees on a regular basis. And, how you doing today? What are your challenges, this week? What questions do you have? What successes have you had this week? It's checking in with your employees. And see, one of my things that's really important is exceeding client expectations. Okay, I want to give them something. I want to figure out what they want. I want to give that to them plus something that they don't expect. And it could be one of our coffee mugs that has let it begin, peacemaking, let it begin with me on it. But I do that with the associates and staff as well, of try to exceed their expectations, giving them the opportunity to be a peacemaker, not a litigator, at a much earlier age than I was able to jump into it. So I think it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Definitely. And a legacy, right? Because if you can in turn teach people to do it and then they can in turn teach others to do it, it's just one of those positive things, in my opinion, or positive approaches that can spread, right? And inspire and give others the idea that, hey, there is a different way. And the people that are supposed to be attracted to the methodology or maybe to the mindset, like they will be, right?
Yeah, they will be. And that's the fourth C that's coming in the future, is this concept of culture change, is the perception of lawyers as someone you want to stay away from. It's like,
Mhm.
no, peacemaking, and conflict resolution, whether it's in the family law setting or whether it's
Mhm.
probate or whether it's, neighbor issues. It's building as opposed to tearing apart. I will choose building, and bridge building any day of the week.
And so as you continue on this mission and as you spread the word of collaboration, like you mentioned social media and thinking about things like that and how to get the message out, and like what are some takeaways that you've learned along the way of really pioneering in this area? What are some takeaways?
I think being clear on the mission,
Hmm.
Adam, is really important. And you get feedback on social media stuff
Hmm.
that goes out. Taking the opportunity when you're invited to go out and speak with a group, get out there and speak with the group. Take all questions. One of the things that happened in the last year was that I was invited to teach a collaborative law school class. So this fall, I'm in the law school teaching collaborative law to second, 2L and 3L law students. Get in, put stuff out there. You got to try it because I've never done this before. So I
Yeah.
get to try it. Take the feedback, use that feedback to massage the message
Hmm.
and put it back out there clear, whatever form that you can find.
It's interesting to me. You're mentioning these takeaways. I think about as, any entrepreneur, any business, and as they kind of go on that journey and they kind of recalibrate, they see if they're on the right path. And then you have all these moving pieces and you're wondering like, sometimes, you have your roadmap, obviously your business plan, all things that you're doing to make sure the business is running. But in terms of like thinking about what's next or those next steps, or how do you continue innovating? How do you continue pushing the envelope on things like you mentioned, like exceeding client expectations? Like, how do you keep pushing the envelope to get better and better?
And it's a daily practice. I mean, every day is a new opportunity. Every phone call, every client who gives me a call, they come in and say, I've heard this. You've probably heard this 1,000 times. And Adam, I approach each of those with beginner's mind.
Hmm.
Because in fact, I've never heard that story before because it's coming from that person who is now
Yeah.
sitting with me at my desk. And in terms of building and creating network,
Mhm.
so much of my work comes from referrals. So it's not only the clients that I do that with, it's
Mhm.
the other attorneys that I work with, or the
Mhm.
coaches, the mental health practitioners, or the
Mhm.
financial neutrals, or financial planners, the CEOs that I am building connection with them. And, you get more with kindness than you do with vinegar,
Mhm.
more with honey than you do with vinegar. Entering into relation with people, it's incredible. If you look at my client reviews, on one of the attorney websites that I use, they're just 95-star reviews,
Wow.
of somehow I touch them in a way that encouraged them to let the public know. Let the
Mhm.
world know they had a good experience with the Seattle Collaborative Law Center. And if I can leave that lasting evidence or message, I know I'm on the right path.
And that concept of beginner's mind, I love that you bring that up. And that's the idea for those, if you missed it, what he said, it's the idea that you're, every person's unique that's in front of you. So for example, as a, company, I've done over 5,000 interviews now, but I try to enter every interview with beginner's mind as well. Like, it's like, because why? Because I've never done this interview before. It's me and Kevin. Like, this is our first time doing this particular interview together. And this is our first time having this conversation. So it is something new and it is special and it is unique. And I think there's a lot of layers of lessons in that one, Kevin, especially for people that are in any type of services business, because, you may have think you saw a certain scenario once before, twice, or 1,000 times before, but there's a unique individual in front of you that you haven't heard it from them yet, right?
It is. And I think the biggest takeaway from that is that if we close ourselves off to this new authentic being that we're meeting, we're missing an opportunity to learn more and become better at what we do.
Absolutely.
So you're very good at my 3 C's and you're exhibiting the 4th C as well. Okay, because you've got
Stop giving them all the C's, Kevin. Stop. That's
sorry,
for the next interview, man. Now I can't even ask you questions about the book because you already gave them too much.
sorry, they're just all the teasers. So
Those are T's. Go deep on the next one. Leave these C's out, Kevin. You're giving them all. No, I'm just playing. Seriously, it's great that you did,
absolutely.
and the information's awesome. And what I like about it is that you're living it. You didn't just sit down one day and say, "Let's come up with some C's." Like you're living it,
No,
and you practice it on a daily basis, and that's how you're getting better, and that's how you're providing more and more value for your clients.
absolutely. And it is interesting how just all of a sudden this stuff comes to you. And right, that's another really important thing of when you're in the pool, or you're on your bike or something, and something comes to your mind of saying, "Ooh, that's a good idea." Write it down.
Yeah.
Okay, explore it, embrace it, because I think the C's came to me during a board meeting. I'm on the board of the International Collaborative Organization at this point. And just the energy that you get from being around like-minded people who are excited about the work that you're doing, holy smokes, the epiphanies come left and right. And just a thing about epiphanies, one of my early trainings where I was with the trainer just blew my socks off. It just introduced stuff, that was like, just blew my mind. So I'm in the lobby and I'm sitting there at a table and comes by and he sits with us and he's sitting next to me. I turned around, looked at him and I said, "Woody, how often do you have an epiphany?" And he goes, "Oh, every day."
Wow.
Right? And I think we all can have epiphanies every day.
Yeah. If we're paying attention.
Yeah, and we're open to it. If we are walking in fear and we're not curious, we're less likely to have an epiphany. But if someone could bottle epiphanies, I think that would be great.
Oh, it's great. Well, Kevin, I just have to say it is great having you on the show, getting to know more about your practice, your approach, how it was developed. We got a little bit of teaser of what's coming in the book, as I before multiple times. We'll be bringing you back on the show for the audience so that we could do a deep dive into your reading or to your writing. But for now, I just have to ask, what's next for you? What's next for you? What's next for your firm?
So, we're just going to continue to take care of clients. We're going to look for growing opportunities. I think an exciting thing, Adam, is I'm seeing things that I haven't thought about. Life is a journey, right? It's a river. And I've come to a bend in the river where all of a sudden I see, here I am, my office, surrounded by the things I love. And I realize at some point, I'm going to be bringing in other people to take this space while I am doing something different. I'm training, I'm teaching, I'm talking, I'm writing, I'm managing, but we're growing. I think that's where my next area of growth is going to be, because this concept of culture change, of really going back to the mission of changing the way law is practiced, which involves clients taking over their own legacy building and empowering clients. That's where I see myself going at this point.
Yeah, it's great. And if somebody wants to follow up and learn more about working with you and your team, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, please go to my website at www.seattleclc.com, and that's the Seattle Collaborative Law Center. We're in Seattle, Washington, or email me directly at kevin@seattleclc.com. I would love to connect with you.
Fantastic. And we'll put all that information into the show notes so that our audience can just click on the link and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time viewing or listening to a Mission Matters episode or engaging with the platform, we're all about bringing on entrepreneurs, executives, and experts and having them share their mission, why they do what they do, the reasoning behind their mission, how they're executing, and really what we can all learn and gain from their journey and their story so that we can all grow together. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or fun or engaging to you, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up for you on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Kevin, really, it's been a pleasure working with you, and look forward to the next time we get to do an interview. So thanks again for coming on.
Adam, thank you very much. I look forward to it.